Happy Memorial Day weekend, Sunday, everybody. I appreciate you being here with me tonight. And tonight's show is about expressive florals or just expressive painting in general. And we're going to be using negative space painting, which is a fun thing to do. I do it and I'd like to be better at it. So I am going to share with y'all what the technique is and we're going to do it together. Okay. Now, what I did want to do is show you last week. This is the workshop that we did. So it was Impressionist Fruit. And this is using acrylic paints as well. We did the blueberry and the strawberry, full strawberry, half strawberry, and Crazy Junk Art said, use gold around the rim of the plate. So that's what I did. I thought that was a great idea. And it's not quite finished yet. There are a few finishing touches that I need to do to it. And then that will be available for the next workshop. Because I do on, hey there, Crazy Junk Art, I just mentioned you. And what I said was, this was from last week, and you had said to put a gold rim around the plate. So I did go ahead and I put a gold rim around the plate, and I still have to drop a shadow in here underneath the plate and touch up my fruit to be sure that they're exactly the way that I want them. Oh, thank you. And then that will be available for sale next week during next week's show. But for this week, I wanted to show you some pieces that I finished during the course of the week. I do paint each week. I try to finish off the work that I had from the last show, but I've had an exciting week working on a video for the Pebeo Paint Company. So the folks here at Pebeo, I'm doing a special project for them, and I was recording and editing and doing all of that. So I did a little bit of painting, but it wasn't painting that was based upon last week's workshop. However, there were a few small pieces that I did get done, and this is one of them. It says singing brass bowls. And the reason it says singing brass bowls is because when I was a kid, I grew up in Asia, Korea and Taiwan to be specific. And in Korea, they're famous for their brass. And one of the, as is India, but in particular in Korea, back in the day, these are antiques. They made something they called singing brass bowls. And they actually, when you have one of these brass bowls, um, they fired the metal over top of a certain kind of pine tree that's available in Korea. And so it gives the bowls just the most gorgeous ringing tones. And so this, I was mixing up some variations of gold and bronze, and I'm going to show you today because I forgot to show you last week during last week's workshop with acrylics. So this week I'm going to show you how I mix up these different kind of metallics that look like brass and look like bronze. There's some special techniques to that. And then I found this really cool Laos postage stamp with a beautiful headdress that has brass on it. And so I thought those match nicely. Now, anytime, and this is available in the buy now on Whatnot. So if you are over on YouTube and you would like to come to onto Whatnot for the sale later, these are items that are going to be available for sale after the workshop where I teach you about doing the loose florals in acrylic paints. So when you do buy a piece like this from me that's finished, it comes matted. You're going to select whether you want the black matte, so it's going to come in a matte like that, or whether you want the white matte. So here is the white matte like this. So of course, it depends on your decor, whether you prefer the black or the white. And in the listing, I do have a picture that has both the black and the white so that then you can decide which one you like better. Or of course, during these shows, you can ask me to show it to you again and I'll be happy to do it. when we get to the sale part of the show after the um, art class. This is another piece that was completed this week. And this is, I have a whole series so far, 3 paintings that are teacups, like your traditional Japanese or Chinese teacups, and then with plays on the word tea. So this is steam tea instead of steamy. I put steam tea. And there's that one with the metallic acrylic paint. And this is what it looks like with the black mat. Let's see if I can get it in there, right? Something like that with the black mat. And then this is what it looks like in the white mat. I like the decal edge of these pieces, which is the handmade paper that has a rough edge all the way around. So there's that one, steam tea. So that will be, again, later. Those are currently in the Buy It Now um, on Whatnot. So if you are on Whatnot and you're interested in finished pieces of artwork, feel free to go check those out. Now, also tonight, I have finished 2 greeting cards. These were ones that I had started 2 weeks ago, and I finished these during the week. So here is one that features a 1973 postage stamp with the Apollo 16 a cool graphic from the Apollo 16. So that's a new one that will be auctioned after the workshop. And the auction starts around 7:30 p.m. On Whatnot. And then there is this one that I finished this week as well. I love this beautiful cyan blue color of these postage stamps. They're contemporary stamps from England, and then there's a piece of um, map in there that's also from England. So kind of following along with that theme. Those are new pieces that are going to be available later tonight during the show. But if you are on Whatnot, feel free to go into the little house at the bottom of the screen and check out the new artworks that are in there and that are available for sale. And feel free to make me an offer. Now, for tonight, we are going to be doing a project similar to these. This uses negative space painting. So there's actually a painting underneath the painting. So we're going to lay in some various elements in the background. And then, like this pink is painted right over top of what's underneath here in order to give the layered effect. And I love that about acrylic. I was saying last week that my theme is there's no crying in acrylic because we can always just put another layer over top of it, right? But following along with that artwork, you can see these are the books that are the inspiration for that style of art. I have over 400 books in my art library. They're not all on the shelves. A lot of them are in books and are in boxes in storage from when I moved. I haven't put them on the shelves yet, but I reference my art books often. And even though I've been an artist for 20 years, I still go ahead and anytime I see some eye candy, right? A book that I really like the look of, I will buy it because I learned something from everybody. We all have an opportunity to learn from each other as artists. So this book is Brave Intuitive Painting by Flora Bowley. I love her style. And you see all of the painting in the background here. She actually laid this over top of a dark color in the background. So there's so much you can do with the layering. Let me see if there's another there are tons of interesting pictures in here, but here's another one right there. So you can see how the variations, the paint is just layered on top of itself. When the workshop and the auction are done, these videos are saved to my YouTube live tab. And in there, in the description, I will go back and I will add the links to these books that I'm showing you, okay? And I'll also add the links to the artists that I'm going to show you shortly from Instagram that are also my inspiration. So this book, Brave Intuitive Painting, will be linked in the YouTube video. And then this one as well. Oh my gosh. This is the one that got my attention first on my shelf. And it is called Painted Blossoms. And so this one is by Carrie Schmidt. Carrie Schmidt. And just look at this on the front. So there's a lot of color in the background. And then she goes in with this kind of a greeny or yellowy white on top of it. And here are some more samples on the back here that she shows you. And the nice thing about this book, Painted Blossoms, is she's actually showing you paintings from various and techniques from various artists, not just from herself. So here, for instance, there's Iris Scott, and she shows her paintings here. And then that artist may have a demonstration within the book. Not necessarily, she may just be featuring the artist, but she also has projects from various artists in the book. So it's just so much fun. So you see this very loosey-goosey. You don't have to be a realist to have fun and make beautiful art. I'm not a realist, I'll tell you that right now. I am not a realist. I'm not going for realism when I paint. Now, something that may be unexpected that you may not be aware of can come from a bookstore, of course, besides those books. This is a magazine called Garden Gate, and I've kept it all these years. This is from when? This is from way, way long ago. It's Garden Gate magazine, and gee whiz, this thing's old. But the reason that I hang on to it is because in the book, look at this. They have stunning photographs of various types of flowers. And so they're excellent inspiration for this kind of artwork that we're going to be doing today. Let me see if there's another one there. I just love the close-ups that they have of the various flowers. Look at this yellow flower right here. Isn't that crazy? It's just all fluffy, but it helps to give you a concept for the way that various flowers look so that you can be confident in how it is that you're maybe making your strokes on your artwork coming up. It just gives you so many ideas. Let me see. I'm just looking at this. Wow. Okay, this magazine gives you all these ideas for how to lay out your garden depending on where you live. Amazing. All kinds of gardening tips. Yes. Love, love, love. And then here, I love the shape of these leaves. Are just fabulous. And then look, there's even a butterfly, a swallowtail here. So there's inspiration everywhere, y'all. Just in the books. Makes me kind of crazy, right? I just want to do nothing but paint all day. Or cut stones. I also love to cut stones and to work with Florida black coral to make jewelry. Not enough hours in the day and not enough years in my lifetime to do everything I want to do. Oh, okay. So here are some artists from Instagram that I take inspiration from. I follow tons of artists on Instagram. And so as I have a subject in mind to share with you, I like to find artists on Instagram that do artwork in that theme. So here is one. Is it Lordy Jordy Art? Remember that I'm going to take these Instagram handles and I'm going to put them into the description in the YouTube video after the workshop is over. Okay, so by tomorrow, the information will be in there and you'll be able to reference who these people are. But I did want to show you this one. Now, this is really insane and I love it, right? Because look at how colorful the background is. The background is a mishmash of colors, just like crazy colors. And then the artist comes in with white and defines the petals. This is called negative shape painting. So she created the heart by what? Painting around the heart. Not painting the heart itself, but painting around the art. So, or around the heart. So that is called negative shape painting. Around the flower here, the white. This one's insane, right? Around the flower with white. This just makes me so happy to see that. But that's Lordy Doherty art. Here is Anna Blattman. Anna Blattman. And this one is more very undefined. The flowers are undefined. They're just basically textural circles with a center of some sort, right? So that's where, if you saw the promotional photo for this workshop, this is the one that I did. It's not done yet, but it's got a lot of the steps in it that we're going to go through today. And so notice that there are some that are just circles with a blob in the middle, like that. And then there was a blue-green, what is that, a green background. And then I went in with the negative shape here of the purple in the background and let some of the background color show through. That's the trick. You want to let some of that background color show through. But here is harder than you think to paint something that's like this, that's not at all realist. You do need to focus, take your time, practice to come up with something like this. So it's not as easy as you think it is. Because I love when people go, I can do that. It's like, okay, let's try it together. Because it's not always as easy as you think it is. Now, this person, Chris Art Abbasi, it looks like. And the lines are from my printer, so ignore those green lines across there. This background is yellow, but the same thing. They painted a background and then came back in with the yellow and did the negative space painting. And then when that was dry, came back in with a marker or a liner brush of some sort and did the detail artwork on top of that to highlight certain areas. And so that's what we're talking about for tonight, is that negative shape painting. Now, this one also makes my heart sing. Let's see, the name is Abby Painter Art, Abby, Abby Painter Art. And what you notice if you look closely at this artwork is that these flowers have been painted around in a negative painting fashion. And what's in the background is the color of the flower here. This green color is actually what's in the background, that they then painted this in the foreground. Okay. And then they painted this in the foreground as well, I believe. So there's a lot going on there, lots of fun. And so we're going to do some of these techniques today. Now, what supplies are we going to need? We're going to need some acrylic paints. So you know that I work with Pebeo, so I feature a lot of the Pebeo paints. And actually, during today's workshop, I'm going to be doing a giveaway, again, of acrylic paint. So we have two of my favorite yellows I'll be giving away. They call it bright yellow, but I would call it pale yellow. And then this one is fluorescent yellow that I showed you how to color mix with fluorescent yellow last week. So if you missed last week's workshop, if you're on Whatnot, you can just go to my past shows and the workshop will be there. If you're on YouTube, and I keep pointing over here because I have my YouTube phone over there watching the chat. Let's see. Yasilomar Amir Gomez said hello over on YouTube. Hello to you too. So these paints will be a giveaway during the workshop and immediately after the workshop. So as we get more people funnel into the workshop, then we'll run giveaways during the show. If you're on YouTube and you would like to participate in the giveaways, and the auction after the art workshop, then you can use the QR code at the top of your screen to scan with your phone or go into the description of the video. And you'll find a link there to bring you over to Whatnot so you can join in and participate in the giveaways and participate in the auction after the art workshop. All right. Now, before we get started, I do, because we're painting with acrylic, I tend to get it all over my hands as I'm painting. Inks and acrylics, I just get all over me. So I use something called an invisible glove, or what's also known as a barrier cream. So you're going to want to have some sort of barrier cream on hand. It's very helpful. This happens to be my favorite one, and it comes out, it's kind of like a silicone almost, it feels like. So it's like having on a glove without having on a glove. Isn't that great? That's why they call it invisible glove. I do have it linked under the supply links on my website. So I will be showing you that in a little bit, what my website is. It's deetsart.com. And so on my website, there is a menu item called supply links. And I do have a link to barrier creams, including this one, invisible glove, that I like to use. Now, once you've put this on, it protects your skin from the paint. It makes the paint wash right off when you go to the sink. But if you do wash your hands, you need to reapply it before you start painting again, because you will have washed off the silicone coating that you just put on your hands. So let me get some of this excess out of the way here. All right. The next thing you're going to need, of course, is brushes. And I like brushes with this kind of, like this yellowish top to them. I mean, you can get brushes that have the black tops to them too, like this. I just find I prefer this color when I'm painting. And it comes in white or this yellow. It's a synthetic top for acrylic painting. So those are my favorite brushes. Now this is one that's from Hobby Lobby called Master's Touch. And you can see the like kind of light brown, but this is a synthetic brush, and it's great to use with acrylics because they last a long time and they clean up well. That's what you want, right? Now, I did mention the Pebeo acrylics just a moment ago, but also here's Deco Art, the Americana. This is a more fluid paint. This is a paint has a little more body to it. So it just depends on what your application is and your budget is, which paint you're going to work with. Now, another paint that I like to work with is the Golden Flow paint. So it's more drippy, more ink-like, and but also a lot more expensive. So I like the white. I saw another artist who uses this white and then adds it to the colors like this that are a little thicker, and it helps to really loosen the colors up and make them flow a little bit more and so they flow off your brush better. And it gives you if you're using the white, it will cause the paint to become more pastel color, which is beautiful. Which is what I did with the one that I was just showing you a moment ago. And where did I put it? Here it is, with the pink in the background. You see how I lightened the red to create a pink. So I was using white. We're also going to be using a palette. So this is a pad of palette paper, and it's shiny on this side, and that way the paint will sit on top of it. And I will use a palette knife, which is another thing that we use to mix colors if I want to do color mixing. You can also apply your paint with a palette knife. This is a smaller one, and this is called offset. So you see how the handle is here, and then it goes down, and then there's the head of the palette knife. So that's called an offset palette knife. And these are my favorite ones because you can really get in there to do your work that way. The next thing is, of course, paper. And my favorite thing to use, hey, Handcraft Love, I see you just came in over here on Whatnot. Welcome in, welcome in. So my favorite paper is the Canson XL. Has a big XL on it, but they make XL what is it, XL mixed media paper and XL watercolor paper. So I like to use the XL watercolor paper for my acrylic painting because it's heavier. It's a 140-pound paper. So that means the actual paper itself here is nice and thick, and it can take a licking and keep on ticking. It just keeps working, and you can throw a lot of paint at it. It's a great base for acrylic paint. Sometimes, depending on what kind of painting I'm doing, I will also coat this paint with a layer of gesso. So gesso is just an acrylic primer, and I find depending on your paint may or may not flow well over the top of the paper, because this paper, of course, is thirsty. It's designed for watercolor, right? And so if you find that your paint is stopping on the page and kind of causing you to skip and dry brush across it, then you may need to coat your paper first with gesso before you start painting on your watercolor paper. And the watercolor paper takes it beautifully. I'm just looking to see here if I have a thing of gesso. Yes. So there's a container of gesso. This happens to be black gesso. Did you know gesso came in black? Ooh, there you go. So you can use black gesso on your paper as well. Now, last week, if you were with me last week, then I did an overview of the different types of acrylic paints. So, and I went more in depth about different types of acrylic paints. So tonight, what I'm going to do is just blow right through it. And if you want more detail about the acrylic paints, you and the different types that are available, you are welcome to go back and watch last week's workshop, where I was saying we did this loose fruits in acrylics. Okay. That was a fun workshop, but I'm just going to blow through these very quickly right now. But if you want to know more about it, go watch last week's workshop. So this is just a sample of a transparent versus an opaque acrylic paint, just regular acrylic paint. This is the Pebeo paints. And notice that I have a line up here, and then I have a whole bunch of black down here. So up here, I put white gesso. Down here, I put black gesso. And then here, you can either use a Sharpie or a line of black gesso across the page. And then you'll be able to more clearly see whether it's transparent or opaque. Opaque means that the line does not show through it, and transparent means that you're going to see a line through there. Okay, so these are both red, but one is transparent and one is opaque. When I color mix, I like to color mix with at least one transparent color. That's kind of a trick to making sure that you get good color when you're color mixing, is to make sure that at least one of your colors is transparent. So it's helpful to know if your colors are transparent or opaque. And then these are shimmer color paints. Pebeo has a line called Dyna, and they have shimmer in them. It means they have mica in them. And then metallics. But of course, this is in general, other companies have the same. And then here, this is fluorescent, which I didn't realize when I began working with fluorescents, that in general, fluorescents are transparent. You see how you can see the line through there? So they make excellent mixing colors. I love doing the mixing colors with the fluorescents, and I did that exercise in my last video. So if you go back and you watch my last video, I show you mixing with the fluorescents and the beautiful colors you can get with that. And then this is a phosphorescent. So this glows under a black light, but this glows under a black light and is takes in light and glows in the dark. So a phosphorescent color glows in the dark. A fluorescent color does not glow in the dark. But both of these glow under black lights. Next, these are some more of the fluorescents. So what you're going to notice is, for instance, here, a yellow, a pink, and an orange fluorescent. And there are other companies that have blue and green fluorescent as well. So those are, like I said, they're good for color mixing. I color mix with these two a lot. And then here, Pebeo happens to have like a yellow, a green, and a blue phosphorescent that at night they glow these various colors. But you can see they're transparent. You can barely see them over the black, but at night they glow. So that's kind of fun to get prepared for Halloween. If you're aware that you can buy phosphorescent paints and then make cool effects that'll glow in the dark with those phosphorescents, right? I don't know if there's anyone else out in the crowd watching right now that likes Halloween, but Halloween is, especially on Whatnot, Halloween is a big deal. I saw today somebody doing an auction on Whatnot, and they were it was halfway to Halloween was their show. How crazy is that, right? So I know Halloween's very popular on Whatnot. And then here is metallics. So this is a metallic gold, and notice how the metallics are opaque, right? The metallics are opaque. You can't even see through. Now, some of these I had to put a second coat on, and that's something that you try. That's why you do this kind of board. This is on a canvas board, and this is what I do when I get new acrylic paints and I want to see how they're going to work. Now, I do the same thing on paper as well. You don't have to have a board like this. It's just if I'm showing it a lot for demonstration purposes, I like to use the canvas board. And I put white gesso up here and black gesso down here and do a line through it. So these are all opaque. Now, sometimes I do a second coat to make sure that you can see that the metallic is opaque. But these are the 4 metallics that Pebeo has in their line. And then I mix a whole bunch of metallics like this rose gold and bronze from these. And I'm going to show you how I do those mixes tonight because I forgot to show you last week. But here is a piece that I did where I was playing around. I wanted to get the look of bronze. So I was using copper and the warmer of the 2 golds that you saw there, and then a secret color that I'm going to show you tonight to get bronze. And then this is brass, the color brass. All right, so those are not ones that you normally find um, from companies. There are some companies that make the color bronze. They call it bronze. It's that, richer, darker metallic. And then this, real quick, like, is the shimmer colors from Pebeo. They call them the Dyna colors. But you can see they're very rich and pigmented there. And they have a lot of shimmer. And they're kind of semi-opaque, I would call them. Because like this one, you can see the line through very well. But most of them, the line is kind of there. So that means it's semi-opaque. And this is done on paper. So this is the watercolor paper, and then I put the white gesso up here and the black gesso down here, and then tested out my acrylics that way. So that's the way that you can test out what your acrylics can do for you. All right, now we are going to go over the table. These are my, if you want to go to my Instagram, or my website. We've got Instagram here, Dietz Art, Facebook, Dietz Art, Tristina Dietz Art, my website, www.dietzart.com. So if you want to take a picture of that, feel free to do so. If you're on YouTube, of course, and you want to come over to Whatnot, I'm at Tristina's Attic on Whatnot. And if you are on Whatnot, you're able to give tips while you're on Whatnot, which I think is a wonderful thing. And last week I received some tips during my workshop, so I do appreciate y'all for that. But if you are on YouTube and you enjoy these lives and the interaction and getting your questions answered live, you can go to ko-fi.com. So that's ko-fi.com. And I'm at Tristina Dietz Art over there. And you can buy me a coffee over on ko-fi.com if you're on YouTube. All right. Thank you. So let me get that out of there. And what we're going to do is we are going to, so this is my palette where I'm going to be putting my paint. Let me come up with that. Oh, I have paint everywhere, y'all. And what I have done is I have actually pre-made some sheets. I had told you about this one that I started on, so I'll show you how you can, some ways to finish. You see some of the ones like this, where it's just, this is literally leftover paint. So if I have leftover paint, I go ahead and put it out on a piece of watercolor paper, and that way I have it available as a background, which is perfect for this type of workshop today. And here's more. So this is just a notebook of watercolor paper and leftover paint, that in order to get the ball rolling, right? To get things started. So before we actually do the backgrounds, I'm going to show you the mixing of the metallics, because remember I said last week I forgot to show you how to mix the metallic paints. So these are, let me find my copper, my silver, there is, okay, there's the black, here they are. So these are, this happens to be the line that's available from Pebeo, but there's also, oh, hold on a second. Let me just change the temperature of the light there to make it a little bit brighter for you. So these are silver, two types of gold, and a copper. That's from Pebeo. Now, there are other companies that have lots of other types of golds as well, but you need to be aware that sometimes companies have multiple golds, especially when you're in the middle of a painting and you run out of a tube and you run to the store to get a replacement tube and you grab the wrong one, which I have done. You need to be aware that sometimes companies have multiple shades of gold. So here what you're actually seeing is a number 350 and 352, and one is your regular iridescent gold, and one is your what they call precious gold, which in this case is a little bit darker color gold. So it's important to know that when you're running to the store. Now when I color mix, I do use a palette knife. So let's do the first color that I like to mix, because it's so easy to do, and it always blows people's mind, is to do a rose gold. So this is a little bit of copper right here. And then, did I say copper? This is a little bit of silver. I have copper on my mind because I love the copper. And then there's some copper. So it's simply how rosy do you want your color. Here you do more copper or more silver, depending on how the intensity of the rosiness that you want. So here, just like that, I've got a rose gold. It's that quick. Now, if I want it to be a little lighter, I can add a little bit more silver, and then that will help to lighten up that rose gold. It depends, of course, on what you're painting and how dramatic it needs to be. If it needs to be a lighter version of rose gold or a darker version of rose gold. So this one is a lighter version of rose gold right there, using more silver in it. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. Okay, so I don't want to waste this, right? Because I have a no paint left behind policy. So on my website, in the supply items area, are these Jack Richardson 4x6 postcard watercolor sheets, and they are 135 pounds. And so I have the links to them in my website, and you buy them in 50 sheet packs, and I'm almost out. So I just ordered some yesterday, but it looks like a postcard on the back. So we're gonna take this and we're going to put it on the front. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. So pretty. Because that way, that will become the background for another piece of artwork later on. Don't waste it. All right, cool. Just whip that on there like that. And then that will be a nice background for something else later. All right, to go on to the next color. Oh, these are my favorite Viva paper towels because they're more like a fabric. They're woven. They don't have those funky designs on them. So especially when I'm working with picking up color like this on a piece of artwork, if I put down too much color, having a cloth-like paper towel works better than having a paper towel that has a design on it. You don't want to get that design on there. Okay, so the next color is using the gold. This is the lighter of the two golds. And then a little bit of the copper. So this gold, let me show you how bright this gold is. This gold is nice and bright. That's my favorite one, is that bright gold. But here we're going to put just a little bit of copper in it. And what's going to happen is we're going to end up with a brassy kind of paint color. It's going to start looking similar to this one, the more antique gold. And so you can antiquify your gold. If you have just plain gold and you have some copper, you can antiquify the gold by adding a little bit of the copper in with it. And so that's what's happening here. So this is a shiny brass. If I want it to be a darker brass, I'm going to add a little bit of the more copper, but I want it to have a tinny look to it if it's going to be brass. So I'm going to add just a tiny bit of silver to it as well. So this is what I love about working with acrylics, is the way that you can mix them. And it doesn't matter if it's Pebio's brand or another brand of paint. If it's an acrylic paint, I can mix any of them together, which is fabulous. Okay, so here we go. Now we're getting something that has a little bit different finish to it. All right, so it looks like an old brass color instead of it being a newer brass color. All right, and now this is the rich gold, which is very warm. It's a darker color of gold. So we're going to put some of that on there. Let me put this one next to it so you can kind of see the difference here. So this one is the warmer one, and this one is the cooler or brighter one there. And then I'm going to put a little bit of copper into it to darken it. Well, that's a lot of copper. We may have to adjust it. Okay, and then what I'm trying to do right now is make a bronze. And the trick to making bronze is that you want to add a little bit of a green to it, because bronze, as it gets older, gets a kind of a bluey green patina to it. So you want to use a green in it. Usually I use this phthalo green, or Pebio calls it phthalo emerald, but it's a phthalo green. It is a transparent color. See the little block on there that's white on the inside? That means that it is transparent. If it has a little black block like this, it is opaque. But you want to remember, you want to mix with a transparent color if you can. So I'm going to put a little bit of that green in there, and then I'm going to mix it. So here you go. This, you don't have to have this bright in there. You can just have the warm gold, the copper, and the green to get your bronze. But hey, you know, I happen to have this on there because I was showing you something. So let's mix that in there, and you'd be very surprised with that green in there how you get a copper. But you have to think about chemistry, when there are actually chemicals that you can buy to put on copper, for instance, that give it that green color. And so that it can, the chemistry of it makes that happen. And you end up with green. Now there is a light bronze color right there. I just mixed the light bronze, just like that. And if I want it to be a darker bronze, I can add a little bit more of the copper to it. And then I'll make the bronze a little bit older looking, a little warmer. Let's do that. So I call myself a mad color mixer because I'm doing this all the time. I'm just sitting here. Oh, what will this make? What will that make? Actually, if you are on Instagram and you find an artist that does color mixing videos, oh my gosh, they get so many views because there's just something so satisfying about mixing a couple of colors together and getting another color. So that I just deepened the bronze on that, made it look just a little bit older, just like that. So let me put that out on one of these. Ooh, you know what? I'm going to put that on a different kind of paper. Where did it go? I have some other spare paper here. Yes, there it is. Okay, this decal edge paper. So let me grab one of these out of here, and we will go ahead and I love these handmade papers that have a rough edge around each side. And let me move these out of the way. So I can move this up and you can see I just take it off of here with a palette knife. This is how I quickly cover a background that then I'm going to work on top of. Just pull that up with a palette knife and hope that I made enough paint. Because once you've color mixed, it's very difficult to get back to exactly the same color. But, no stress. No stress while I'm painting. I just have fun. Okay, there we go. So now I've covered quite an area there of that. When you have a paper like this with a decal edge all the way around, when I go to do the artwork and then present the artwork, what I do is I present the artwork instead of putting a mat around this beautiful edge. I will use a plain backing board like this, and I will lay it on top of the plain backing board like that. So, and then put it in a frame, and that way you can see all these beautiful rough edges on that special paper. I just love the handmade papers. I did not make the papers. I've had people ask me that. Oh, did you make those papers? I know a lot of artists do make their own paper, but I did not make these papers. I bought them. Okay, we're going to set that aside. So that's how you make brass. And I love my metallics. I use my metallics all the time. Here's another one sitting here ready to, ready to receive something to become a card or another piece of artwork. So what I love about color mixing with a palette knife like this is that's how easy it is to clean off just like that. Ooh, you know what? There's a tiny bit of paint left here. So I am going to use one of these small ones. These are 4x6 size. And because I have a no paint left behind policy, I want to make sure I pick that paint up before we move on to the next step here. So right now I've got this light brass and I've got this pink. So let's go ahead and pull those off of there. And this right here. Oh, so pretty. Looks good against that light color. If I can't cover the whole piece with the leftover paint, I don't stress about it because I know for a fact there will be tons of other leftover paint coming up very shortly, and I can just use that to fill it in. don't worry about it. These I call, I read in an article many years ago by another artist in the magazine Cloth, Paper, Scissors. And that artist was the one that said she has serendipity paper next to her. She called it serendipity paper, and that's where she puts all of her leftover paint, is on the serendipity papers. There we go. Just like that. And now we've got another one ready to go. Okay, now I can clean up. Hey, craft paper design, welcome in, welcome in. Okay, there we are. I'll put that away. I love color mixing my metallics. Wow. All right, great. I'm glad I got that shared, because after last week I was like, oh no, I told you I was going to show you how to mix the metallics, and then I forgot. Okay, let's go ahead and put those away. And then let's get started on, now, in order to do these backgrounds, like I don't even need this palette paper right at the moment, because I'm just going to put a bunch of colors onto the background willy-nilly. I don't have to think about it. It's a beautiful thing. I can just fill the background with fun colors. So let's take some, this is Oriental Violet. And let's see, this one is Cadmium Red. Put a little bit there, a little bit there, a little bit there. And then let's take this one that's turquoise. That's kind of fun. So sometimes when you're on social media, you'll see people doing these dot paintings, and then they create a piece of artwork out of it, which I think is amazing. But in this case, I'm just going to create a background with lots of various colors in it. All right. And how about some hot pink, fluorescent pink? I love my fluorescent pink. There we go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move around some of that purple, because I squeezed out too much purple all at one time. So I'm going to use my smaller palette knife, and I'm going to pick up some of that purple, and I'm just going to deposit it in other areas. The nice thing about the purple is it looks quite dark when it's in a big blob, but when you swipe it, the color really shows nicely. Okay, so now I've got a bunch of color on here. What am I going to do? I can either use my flat palette knife like this, but I want to show you a squeegee. So I have a couple of kinds of squeegees here. And this is a leftover hotel room key from a Holiday Inn. This is something that came in the mail, right? You're always getting stuff in the mail with these plastic cards. This is a squeegee that has a rubber edge to it. And then this is a squeegee. It's called a Catalyst Wedge by Princeton. It's a silicone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, and I'm going to, at an angle, almost flat, I'm just going to pull this and sort of let the colors go where they may. I don't want to overwork it, because if I overwork it, I could end up getting muddy colors. I don't want muddy colors. I just want lots of gradients and colors in the background here. Nice. Now there's a white area up here. I'm going to get some of that color off of there. There's some pink, some more pink there. And now I can take my palette knife and scrape this off and pull the color in other areas. The nice thing about using a silicone wedge like this is that it wipes off very easily. So for instance, just like my palette knife wipes off in a second, which is why I use my palette knife a lot in my studio. The same is true of these wedges. I'm just going to spray it with a tiny bit of water to help get that off of there. And then you just wipe it right off. It's silicone. Okay, there we go. And pretty much the same is true of this kind as well. And if I were using these old cards, I have a huge stack of these old cards. So I would just, normally I just throw them away if they get grungy. Okay, so now we've got the start of some colors on there. And I like this bright pink. So I'm going to put a little bit more bright pink right there. And I'm just going to use my palette knife to draw it through. What I'm doing here is creating some background colorations, background interests. And we will be letting that dry, but I have others that I've already done some work on that we will work on. But this is how simple it is, potentially, to create a background. A little bit more pink here and here. Now, where this comes in handy, just making a random background, is for a painting like, show you this one right here, that I showed you earlier, where you, after you put all your fun colors down, you go back in later after it's dry with a single color and paint the background around all the color to create the shapes. These are so fun. So we will be letting this dry as we move on, but that is the concept for just getting some color down and then pulling out something after it. Now, there's a lot of darkness over here, so I would use maybe something like this beautiful Dyna green. Not too much green, because if I'm pulling out flowers and leaves, there we go. See how I'm just putting it right on my palette knife? I paint a lot straight from the palette knife like that, so I don't waste paint by putting it on the palette and then not using it. Okay, so I don't want to do too much because I don't want the colors to blend together and make mud, right? I'm sure some of you have had that experience. Then you go, why do I keep getting mud? Well, don't overwork it. Just let the paint sit on top, let it dry, and then come back in and add more colors. Now see, I have too many colors on here, so I'm going to clean that off before I put some more of the green on here, so I don't get that color mixing that I don't want. Okay, let's bring some green over here. There we go. Okay, I love that turquoise. So I want some more of the turquoise in there. And you might be saying, right now, that looks like a hot mess. You wouldn't be wrong. Oh, but it is just playing and getting started so that you can come back and pull your flowers and your shapes out of it, like this one. Ah, so fun. And like this other one over here. This one. Aren't they fun? That's why I love the inspiration from other artists, and the same information is available in those books that I showed you earlier as well. Okay, I wanted to get a little bit more of this turquoise in there. Nice. So now we have a nice variation of color in the background, and that will serve us well later when we go back and put colors over top of it to pull out shapes. All right. Oh, like I said, it looks like a hot mess, but it will end up looking super cool when you use the negative space painting on top of it. All right, we're going to set that aside to dry. And then we're going to look at some of the other pieces that I started on already. So this one right here, this one right here, Actually, I'm going to start on this one right here. This is some leftover paint. So see that orange and the sort of pinky salmony color? That was something that I had color mixed and I had leftover paint. So I picked it up with a palette knife and just put it on here in sort of a very loose, flowery kind of design. Now, I want to create a kind of a green background for it. And then we're going to come back later and we're going to put a third color on top that's going to make the leaves show up. So let's start with some of this phthalo green. And yes, see how I'm putting it directly on the paper? You don't have to put it directly on the paper. Let me do it both ways. This is the palette paper here. So I'll put a little bit on the palette paper so you can kind of see a combination of ways to work with it. I can use a palette knife now and just, I don't want to cover over the flowers because I'm going to come back in with another color, a third color, and I'm going to define the leaves, which are going to be this green color in the background. So I'm just pulling this out. I love this phthalo green. Is what Pebio calls phthalo emerald, is just so pretty. So pretty, so pretty. Now I did just get a little bit on there, so I'm going to use another brush. I'm going to use a small brush. I always have small brushes at hand, and I have a little bit of water here. So what I'm going to do is, I don't want the brush too wet. I just want it damp. And then I can go in there and take off the bit that went over top of the flower. It's helpful if your first layer is dry before you move on to your second layer, and that your second layer is dry before you move on to your third layer. That way you can easily layer on one layer on top of the other. Now I'm using a palette knife here just to sort of make it quick, and I like the little lines that the palette knife leaves in the paint, but you could just as easily use a brush. So let's do that. So right here, I'm going to pick a brush. This is a cat's tongue. So it comes up like this to a point. Do you see that? And let me put it against the white. Maybe it's easier to see. So I'm going to get it wet first. I always like to get my brushes wet first. Not too wet. And then I'm going to pick up some of this same phthalo emerald. And this will allow me to go in there with a little more detail to deposit the paint. Now see, I did it again. I went over top of one of those. There we go. Off it came. Easy peasy. So let's go ahead. I like the cat's tongue because I can turn it on its side and it goes into, it just goes down inside the little crevices of the flowers here like that. I'm going to show you up closer right here. So like this, turn it on its side. And by turning it on its side, I can get more precise right in there like that. So that is a cat's tongue, or for some reason they called it a mop wash brush, and I'm like, okay, because most watercolorists call it a cat tongue. All right, so that's what I would do, is come in here, put all these colors around that. Almost done, almost done. So you see how I filled big areas quickly with the palette knife, and then I bring in smaller brushes to do the details. Like it is. And just get that in there. Okay. Now if I want to do, again, the background, I just switch back to my palette knife, like it is, pick up a whole bunch of it, and just do this. And it more quickly covers the area. Okay. Now I'm going to spend just a moment and get these a little bit more so we can finish this a little bit later. When this is dry, we will come back to it and I will show you putting the additional coat over top of it. There we are. See how fast that is? Oh, it's so easy. I even have palette knives that have a smaller head on it. So if you wanted to use a palette knife in even smaller areas, palette knives come in all different shapes. Okay, let's get this up here. Okay, there we go. So we're going to carve out leaves from that background using a third color here when that's dry. So let me set that one aside to dry. And the cool thing is, if you don't want to wait for something to dry like that, you can use a heat gun. So here, I have some people call it a heat tool, because of course, if you're traveling with it, you don't want to call it a heat gun, do you? You want to call it a heat tool. So you can literally just sit here and dry acrylic paints just like this in order to make that layer dry. Okay, I'm looking to see if there are any questions in the chat. Nope, no questions. Awesome. Thanks for joining me on this Memorial Day weekend. And wishing those who have family members that are in the military, that were in the military. My father was in the Air Force, and then he left the Air Force and went to work for the Department of Defense, but he has passed away. Fortunately, he did not pass away in battle, but I want to uh, wish everyone who is here visiting on this weekend night that you have a lovely Memorial Day tomorrow, remembering all those who gave the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom so we can sit here and paint. Okay, so let me get this color out of the brush real quick like. So if you've seen me before, I like to get most of the color out of the brush before I actually give it a good swirl in the water. That way, more color goes down into the trash than it does into the water supply when you put it in the water. Okay, there we go. Nice. Oh, just love that. But I like the combination of the colors, that dark green and this. Now, this is most of the way dry, so you know what? We're just going to do our negative color painting thing anyway. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a brush that's flat across the top. That's what I like to do when I'm doing my cutting the colors. Now, instead of this flat across the top, there's another kind of brush that works really well for this too, which is an angle brush that I'm looking for. Let me see. So this kind of brush right here that has an angle across the top. So there's the angle brush and there's the flat brush. So this flat across the top is called a flat. Actually, I think I am going to use the angle for this. And what do I do? First, I get my brush wet. Now, what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to use this Dynacolor, this bright yellow green, and I'm going to cut the leaves with that. So this is a negative shape painting. So now I'm going to get some of this on there. And let's see where we want our leaves. So I want a leaf here. So I'm cutting around the leaf. So the leaf is actually going to be what's inside here. And then I want another leaf over here. So I'm going to go like that, and I'm going to go outside. So what I'm doing is I'm getting rid of the background and leaving these shapes here as my leaves. So that background is actually the leaves. Let me do another one down here. And same thing, I'm going to go out from there like that. And what you can do as well is you can go ahead and draw on your surface. So I could use a white marker, say, or a watercolor um, pencil, and I could draw where I want the leaves and then go around the outside of it, of where the leaves are, using my color that way. This way I'm just winging it, but you could definitely plan your background a little more carefully. So let's do that. I will use this is my Signo Uniball white pen, and I always seem to have to get it started because I use it on top of paint a lot, and so it gets messed up a lot. So if I wanted another big leaf over here, I could just draw on that dark like this. There's another leaf. So I'm going to paint around the outside of that. And then what if I want another leaf up here? So I'll draw there. I'm going to bring this down for you in just a second, or up for you rather. So you see how I'm drawing it? That means everything inside I'm not going to paint, and everything outside, the negative space, is where I'm going to paint. So let's do that up there. So here we are. So now I'll just come outside the lines like that and put that bright color on the outside. There we go. Again, outside the line. I'm covering over the line just a little bit. And the same is true over here. So now I'm creating that negative space. The negative space is going to have that really pretty shimmery, shiny green in it. So there's a nice contrast between the dark and the light. There we go. So I'll show you this in just a second. Up close and personal. But for right now, there we go. All right, so now you can see that you're going to have this sort of peachy colored flower. You're going to have these dark green leaves, and then you're going to have this shimmery green background. That's one way of doing your negative shape painting. And it is helpful to outline where you're going to want your leaves first and then do your negative shape painting, unless you want to live dangerously and just go for it. That's okay too. All right, let's put that one aside. Now here's one where I have a background color, that bright pink, and then I have blobs on top of there, right? Just a yellow, some pink, red, and purple in this area. And then down here, I used a stencil. So I grabbed a stencil from my extensive stencil collection here, like this. I grabbed this stencil and I laid it down there. I used some of the thicker paint. It doesn't work so well with this fluid paint because the paint is a little too fluid. If you're going to use fluid paint, you need to put the paint down and use a stencil brush with it to put it through with these fluid paints. But if you have a thicker paint like the Pebeo paint here, I put down the stencil and I used the palette knife and I ran it through the stencil to get the design on here. And now what we can do is I can say, okay, I have a couple of options. One option is, what if I want to make this area, this is where I want to put a vase. and this is where I want to have flowers up here. So if I'm doing a vase down here, do I want the base to have the design on it and do the negative painting out here? Or do I want to do the negative? Do I just want to color in the base here and leave this on the outside? And of course, because we're focusing on negative painting, I'm going to change out my color, and we are going to do a negative shape painting. Now let me use a different color marker here. This is a gold one to draw my vase. So I want my vase to be like this. And then over here to be like this. Oops. So now I've got a vase shape drawn on there. I'm not sure if you can see that, but there's a gold line here. The point is that you can't see it very well because you're going to paint over top of it. You just need a guideline, right? So what we're going to do now is I'm going to use a darker blue on the base. There we go. And I actually want this paint, which is a little thicker, I want it to flow a little bit more. So I'm adding a little bit more water to it to get it to flow. And we're going to cover right over top of the texture. But the cool thing is you can still see the texture through it. So I'm going to bring this up to you in just a second here. So you see the vase there, but the cool thing is there's texture to the vase because I did the thicker paint when I created the background there. Okay, let's just make sure I've got this looking good. If there's no crying in acrylic, I can always come back and adjust it if I want to. It's just another layer. Okay, cool. Now what I like about having the texture on the inside here is that later, because there's a raised area here, I can come back later and hit that raised area with maybe a little bit of gold or a little bit of silver, and that will cause that raised area to be picked up, to be highlighted, and that'll look really cool. Okay, so far we have a vase right here, and now we're going to come up into this area and we're going to create flowers. So let's see what color we want to have go over there. Ooh, for our background. I'm thinking, oh, what am I thinking? What am I thinking? Maybe this deco art. I want something that has a bunch of white in it. So let's put that out on there. Beautiful, very creamy. All right, so again, I can either wing it or I can draw. So, and you don't be afraid to draw with a pencil. I just find it's a little bit easier for me to draw with some sort of marker. The white marker usually is better. Okay, so I'm visualizing this. Let's take a look at what we have here. So for instance, just a simple dimple flower like that, where we have a couple of petals coming out. So I am going to draw that on here. Let's try it with the white. And so for instance, I'm going to do this. And then I'm going to draw a couple of, ooh, come on, white, you can do it. There's one petal right there. There's another petal right here. And then another petal right here. And then a fifth petal right here. Okay, so that kind of gives me a guideline that I want to paint outside of that. And I'm going to take this, and then I'm going to come in here outside of it. So this is negative shape painting. Okay, outside everything that's not the petal in that area, right? Like this, and of course, once you've actually put the paint around it, you can always adjust it if you don't like the design. Okay, here, I'm going to come up here and around like that. Nice. And then I'm going to come here. I'm just going around the petals, around the petals. I don't want to go too far away from the petals because there are more flowers to put in over here, right? I just want to stay close to the petals, like that. And then I'm going to go use the center, and I'm just going to put this around the center. I can always change that later. But now the leaves, the flowers actually going to have these designs inside the petal. Let's think of another one. Another flower that we want here. Okay, so that's one flower. I'm thinking I may want to, let's put some in between here. Some in between here. This particular kind of paint is a little bit, it's not as dark. So I'm going to end up having to put more than one layer. And I can see I want to narrow this one up just a little bit. Okay, so we've got one flower there. Let me see what's another interesting shape. Just another, let's do one that goes like this in that direction up here. Let's see here. So there, there, here. And here. And then I'm going to want to put little bits that come out here. So I'm doing something similar to what you see here. Oops, there you go, right there. Is what I'm making here. And I'm using the white to give me my guidelines. Okay. So I've got 3 of those and 2 petals. So now let me bring it up so you can see right there the design. So now I'm going to bring this around the edges. Again, I'm going to stay close to what's here because I don't know if I want to, actually, it doesn't matter if you go quote unquote too far over, because if this whole area over here is blue and I want to add another flower, once it's dry, I'm just going to pop another flower right on top of there, right? Because you can just layer with the acrylics. Okay, here. There, and I go around this one like that. Let's do that. What's cool is as you start building like this, then your imagery will begin to appear like magic. It is so fun. Okay, there we go, there. It helps when you're doing your top color like we're doing right now. It helps to have a color that is not transparent. You need an opaque color. You need an opaque color to put on top there like that. Okay, and then here, this goes here. And actually, I've got two different petals here, so I'm going to take a little bit on the tip of this angle brush, and I'm going to just bring that in there just like that, because it's two separate petals. Okay. Oh, that's fun. So now I've got 2 flowers that I've built there, and we're going to do another one. You know what? Actually, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to paint the outside right around here so that you can really start to see how that's going to pop out. So we'll say that is the wallpaper behind the pot right there. And when I bring this color out to the edges, I try to leave a little bit of the color underneath there out at the edges because I love to have that bottom color sort of peeking through in places. Okay, so I'm just bringing this out here so you can kind of get a feel for what that part looks like. All right. So now if you weren't looking at this part and you just saw that part, you see the colorfulness of the flowers that are peeking through that background. Isn't that fun? And the cool thing is there's no crying in acrylic. So if I didn't like what was coming out, if I didn't like the way the background was turning out doing the negative painting, easy peasy, I'll work right back in on this surface to define it a little bit better. So for instance, let me just do a little bit more here so that I can just focus on these couple of flowers here. So now let's say that I was looking at it and I said, oh, you know, these flowers need a little more definition. Then I would come in with a small brush. Let me see, what would be a good small brush? There's a good small brush. So I would come in with a small brush and maybe define the outside edges. So let's use some of my favorite pale yellow. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and run a giveaway for the pale yellow right here because that's what I'm using right now. Okay, so for those folks who are with me right now, I'm going to do the givey of this pale yellow color. All right, let's see here. Pale yellow, run the giveaway. So if you're on YouTube and you'd like to participate in the giveaway, just scan the QR code at the top of your screen or go into the comments or the description section of the video and um, you're able to click on the link and come over to my show on Whatnot, and then you can participate in the giveaway. So the giveaway is running. You know what? I need a brighter orange than that. So here's a cadmium yellow. I'm going to put that right there. Don't need a lot when we're just doing some highlighting here. And I'm going to take my small brush. And now what I'm wanting to do is like define the edges here to give a little more definition to the flower. So I'm just going to go right around the outside of it. And if you're finding that your color is too transparent, which this one looks a little bit transparent, then you can just add some white to it. So where is my white? White. I know it's on here. There it is. So this is the Artist Loft white. I'm going to put a little bit of white here. And I can pull from because the white will help the paint to look opaque. Because this one happens to say semi-opaque. It has a block with a line through it. It's half white, half black. That means it's semi-opaque. And I need that color to be opaque. So I'm adding it to some white to make it opaque. And I could tell here, I was starting to see the color underneath it along the edges. So that gave me a clue that I needed to add some white to it in order to get it to do what I needed it to do. Okay, here we go. And I just define the edge of the flower right there. So now you've got your petals going. And what I think I will do is I will just go right over that blue in the center there as well. Ooh, I have some cough drops here, which I always keep handy when I have to talk a lot. There we go. So now I define the next one. Now I don't have to define with paint and a brush. I can do this part with a marker of some sort. So let me finish these couple of petals, and then I'll show you on this one up here. So here I'm just outlining these. And then a little bit more with white here. And then outlining this one. So that's just beginning to give the flower some definition there by using one color to go around the outsides. And then here, for this flower up here, instead of using paint, I'm going to grab a marker. So what color marker do I want to use? These are my acrylic markers up here. And I hear that my headphones just went out, so I'm going to turn my air conditioner off because otherwise it will make you crazy. The sound of it. Oh, 48 seconds left on the giveaway, so make sure that you'll jump into the giveaway. So for this flower over here, what do we want to use? Maybe a red? A red. Remember, I can always change it. If I don't like it, I can always go over top of it later. So here's my red marker. Oops, I'll leave that there. So now I can take the marker and I can come in here. And I love acrylic markers for this reason, because they're super easy to use for doing this kind of graphic thing. Let's do this. So now there's the other flower beginning to be defined. And maybe I want to use black. Oh, who was it? Who was the winner? I missed it. It just came off. Let's see, who was it? Crazy Junk Art. Okay, so Crazy Junk Art, this one's coming your way. Woohoo! Congratulations. Me. Yep, that's right. So now I'm going to use a micron pen. So these are my favorite detail pens. This one, actually, I want to use the graphic version of it. This is also, for some reason, it says graphic on it, but they're both micron pens, okay? But this has a number 1, so it'll give me a wider line. And so for these little stamen here, I just want to use the black to define it. But just be careful when you're using your micron pens on your acrylic artworks that you do not put it on a wet acrylic surface, because if you do, it will mess up the tip. And micron pens are expensive. They're they're kind of an expensive art supply. Although I found on my website a link to a really cool, what they call a manga set. And the manga set is, it's a set of something like 5 of different sizes, tip sizes, and it was a really good price. So if you go to my website, you can find that. See, this is a little bit wet still, so for some reason it doesn't want to come out. I'm going to do the thing that I would normally never do on finished artwork, and I'm going to use a Sharpie. And the reason is because, thank you, I'm becoming a real Pebeo fan. Crazy Junk Art said, thank you. So here, this is a Sharpie. The problem with a Sharpie, using it in artwork that you're going to sell, that you want to last a long time, is it discolors very quickly compared to your fine art markers. So let's see if I can get this one to write. The trick is, yeah, this paint is not all the way dry yet. That's what the problem is. The paint is not all the way dry. All right. So it doesn't want to write on there. But that's what I would do, is I would go back with one of these graphic markers. And since the graphic marker is not working, let me see something. Nope, I don't have any ink here. Darn it. I was just going to grab a pen with a nib and a dip pen and then dip it and then do it. But here, we'll use this other one. This one is a flat and it has a very narrow edge to it. So let's take this and use a little bit of black paint. Why not? Let's give it a try here. There it is. Ooh. I'll just put a tiny bit of black on there. And we'll use the tiny brush that I just got wet so that it helps the paint to flow. And now what I'm going to do is press on one side, flip it over, and press on the other side so I get a nice flat, skinny tip to it. And that's how I can get my outlines here. See how it looks pretty thin? Thin there. Not as thin as the marker, but still, for a brush, not too bad. I don't have too many really tiny brushes because I don't do that much detail work. But there you go. Now you can see the black around there, defining those little stamen coming out of there. And there, that helps. And you know what? If let's say that I did it and it was too big, I could just go back over top of it with this paint again, a layer or two, and get it to exactly the shape that I want using those negative painting techniques. Okay, let's do this again. But I'm okay with stuff looking wonky and not looking perfect because I like organic looking artwork. Okay, so now if you're just looking at this side, you can start to see how the flowers are beginning to be defined, right? The next thing that you'll want to do is paint some leaves in there. So again, using this bright Dyna green, let me find a brush that's going to give us the right shape. Okay, so it's helpful to have a round brush when you're doing leaves. So I'm getting that wet. And then here, I'm grabbing some of that green. And then I'm going to draw. Now that I have a solid background here, I can draw in some leaves. Now that leaf is very light, which means it's going to be difficult for you to see it. If I want to do light leaves like this, I can do that and then come back and outline them, right? Outline it with a dark color, the black or a dark blue. I can also mix a dark green and then come in and do shadows with the dark green. So I'm going to show you a trick with acrylic paint with dark green. I want to get like a dark olive green to put shadows in here. So let me do that now. Okay, so I've got kind of a light, it's shimmery, it's pretty, but we need to define the edges. So I'm going to show you a special way to mix dark green. And I'm going to do it with black. Don't shoot the messenger. Okay, black. You can mix your black with various yellows to get different versions of dark green. So here we already have a yellow on there. Let's take this yellow. Oop, let me get that blue out of there that I accidentally got up with it. And then we're going to take a little bit of the black and we're going to put it in with that yellow. And now you've got a super dark olive green. That's like a camo green, that one. But that just gave me a dark green. Let me see if I can bring this up closer for you. I'm going to lighten it a little bit here in a second. So that is a camouflage, like a dark green. So you can mix incredible olives by using different yellows with black. So let me do the fluorescent yellow, which last time I had shown you some really cool fluorescents, right? Using fluorescent mixes. So let's do the fluorescent mix with a little bit of black and see what happens. Let's see what happens. I haven't tried this before, so let's see what happens. Oh, wow. Okay. So, of course, because the fluorescent yellow is transparent and it's bright, we're getting a much brighter green. Let me bring that up for you. So here was the mix with a heavy or dark yellow, and here's the light green mix with the fluorescent yellow. Oh, let's try one more, and that is I want to do the pale yellow that I love so much. Okay, here's the pale yellow. And so let's try the pale yellow with a little bit of black. See what happens. See what kind of green we get. Okay. This is actually giving me a gray. Like a warm, grays can be cool or grays can be warm. And so this gray that's made with a yellow, which is a cool color, is actually yellow is a warm color, this particular yellow. It just gave me a warm gray right there, a warm gray. Isn't that crazy? Crazy. Color mixing is so cool. So think about using your black together with your various yellows to get different cool greenish mixes. So that's like a yellowy warm gray. That is so cool. Okay, let me go ahead and drop in some dark green on here. So we'll see what it does. So let's use the round brush. And I'm going to pick up some of this green that was made with the fluorescent yellow, one of my favorite mixing colors. And now I'm going to come in here and sort of define the darker part of the leaf and the underside of the leaf. Now I would still go around the outside of the leaf with a marker. Okay, and then let's see right here. So I'm going to show you where I'm sort of dropping in a shadow on that leaf using that dark green color. And then I do have a black acrylic pen. Let me find it. Yes. So this is an acrylic marker. And the cool thing is it has a small tip to it. Let me see if you can see that. It has a small tip to it. So this is a pump marker, meaning that there's a little, you can hear a little marble in there. So you have to shake it and pump it to get the paint to flow on the tip. And now the paint is flowing from the tip. So I'm going to use that. Normally I might use a dark green or something like that, but I knew I had this black one sitting there. So since this is black acrylic, it will work together with the other acrylic paints that are on here. I don't have to worry about it. All right, now you're beginning to see the leaf sort of show up. Gives it a little bit more of a graphic finish there. These acrylic pens are very helpful, and a bunch of different brands make them. These happen to be the Pebeo ones, but a lot of brands make them. There we go. So now you can actually see, you can see the leaf definition a little bit better, and you've got the light shimmery colors and you have the darker green shadow right there. So that's just working with that half and creating a very whimsical, very fun negative space type of painting there. So I will end up doing one more large flower probably, and then a whole bunch more leaves around here, around this area. And then this is dry. Let's do a dry brush of the silver over, or you know what? Let's use a roller. Do I have a roller handy? That's a good question. I think I'm going to have to dry brush it. Okay, where's the silver? So I'm going to take a little bit of the silver here. I'm going to put it out on the palette. You see how handy the palette paper is, right? I'm going to take my palette knife and I'm just going to run it across the silver so I have a very thin coat of it on the bottom of my palette knife, a thin coating. And then there's texture here because I did the stencil underneath it before with the paint. So I'm going to hold it down and I'm just going to use the palette knife flat across the top. Normally I would do this with a roller, but I don't have a roller handy. So in a pinch, we make it work, right? So there again, I've got it across the bottom there. And I just want it to go flat, 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 flat. And now what's happening is that design is starting to catch the silver. Oh, love that. And it gives the vase a little bit of extra texture. Oh yeah, that's working. That's working. Make sure I get some of it there. Oh, I'm excited to show you this up close. There you go. So now you can see the silver on there. It was catching the design because the design's a little bit 3D on the surface. Isn't that cool? That is so cool. Okay, let's clean this off. And now what I'm going to do is this will be, of course, finished off camera another time. And I'm looking for the one that I started. So this is one that I did very cool. Thank you, Crazy Junk Art. Over the course of the last week. And some of it I did with my finger. I put the paint down like this. Let me get one of those other backgrounds that I have, like this one. And I literally took on my finger, stuck it in the paint like that, and then made the dots like that. So yes, you can finger paint and have fun with this. Okay, so that was that color. What other cool color? That green I want to do leaves with. So let me put like I'm going to put a red on there. Which one is this? This one is an opaque red, so that's helpful when you're doing this, that you have the opaque colors. So let me use a different finger and dip into that one. And what I did with some of these flowers, like those red ones, was I did the center and then I just used my finger and pulled it out like that. So it's like being a kid again, right? You just do that. So I'm building a couple of flowers on there like that. Of course, I'm going to paint a vase of some sort down here. Maybe I just want only part of a flower here, right? And maybe another little one over here. So that's what I did here to create these flowers on a background like this. And then I went back once the base colors were dry, and I used my finger again, and I made more mushes in the beginning, in the middles of those with different colors, right? So just for something fun, tactile, you're getting your fingers involved, right, in there. And now, and then I used a small brush, so similar to this one with a little tiny tip to it, to make little stems. And after all that was dry, I mixed up this purple using a purple and white, and then went all around them with the negative shapes, just like I was doing here in the background. And let me see, just like I'm looking for the this one, right? You can see there's a different color in the background of here, a different darker green in the background. So similar to that. And then, now to me, this is not done. It's not quite finished. What I'll do is I will use these acrylic markers again, or you could just use a small brush like I did to put in details. So with the markers, I'm going to move this out of the way. Actually, I am going to need some of this. This is the palette paper. I'm going to need the palette paper to test the pens on. So let's see what kind of colors we have here. Of course, the red that I had out before. So I'm going to shake it. And then I'm going to make sure the paint is flowing. And then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create some details. So that, for instance, I'm going to create a couple of, just loosely suggesting. I don't have to do a full on design here. And that's the beauty of it, is I'm just having fun, and anybody can do this. This is something anybody can do. You don't have to be particularly skilled one way or the other. You can do it at any age. There we go. And like that. So there's some detail on that one. I'm trying to see if you can see it in the light. Here, oops, that was off camera. Don't want to go off camera, but there's a bunch of red on there. And I love doing the red dots. So let's find another one with a yellow center over here. And maybe I'll do circles here. So that one I just did circles instead. This is your time to be creative, right? Now the same is true of these pens. If you have a fluorescent yellow, that fluorescent yellow is going to be transparent. So I don't want to put transparent on top of darker colors here. So I would avoid my my fluorescents for this. But here is a super cute pink. And I already have some pink in here, so I can take this pink and use it somewhere else. Like say here on the purple. Look at that. So what I wanted to share with this part of the show was just how fun it can be to work back into some of those details and really make these pieces pop. Let me just do this right here. The turquoise always looks good against the orange background. So there we go. Started putting that one in there. So that's what I will do is I will sit here with this and doodle with my markers and finish up this artwork. Now let me go back to the one that I showed you in the beginning, because this one, instead of doing all flowers, what I did with this one is I created a background. Where's my brush? I love doing circles. So I created a background where I literally just went around the page like this, created some circles in the background. Make sure you can see this okay. Bring it all right up here. You get my markers out of the way. And so I literally did this. You create your circles. I have something, an affinity for circles. So I created a bunch of these circles. And let's take another color. In this case, like the that green that's left over is cute. So let's make a green circle. For some reason, I just love making dots. Dots. You'll find lots of dots and swirls in my artwork. So I'm using up the leftover paint here, like that. And then I would take another color. Here's some of the red left over, right? Let's do a circle in the middle here. And then a circle in the middle there. A circle in the middle there. What else? I have some of this other purple right here. Ooh, I just love this Oriental purple, it's called. Oops. And it's coming out fast because it's a big tube. So let's get that off of there. Let's put a little bit of that here, here. But I love purple and green. Okay, so I made a whole sheet of various types of circles. I also did some pillars, what I call pillars, that are shaped like these. Hold that so it's closer for you. That are just shaped like this. You know how the base of a cactus is like that? Actually, I could sort of turn this into a cactus, couldn't I? I could just do that. So you can just play on the underside. It's kind of like a cactus. When I grew up in Asia, there are these really cool stones that are like pillar stones, and they just sort of sit there like this. It's almost like stalactites, stalagmites, but they are just sticking out of the ground. Like they go up like that. They're so cool. And so maybe I'm giving myself a couple of these right here, because I'll show you on the last one what I did with those. Just put a couple of them in. So you can just get crazy in the background like that. Here's another short one. And you can see here on this piece of artwork what I did. I had 3 pillar stones down here. 1, 2, 3. And I went around them with the pink, did the negative shape painting around them. And then highlighted them. Let me pull this out carefully. And then went around them with the blue marker. Can you see that like turquoisey kind of marker? To highlight them, I went around them with a marker like that. And then here are circles underneath here. Oops, let me get that in frame. Circles underneath here. If you could look at this close up, you would literally see an edge of paint underneath here of the circles that I painted underneath that. But then I went over top of it with the pink. So I got myself some shapes here. Let's see. And then I'll do another pillar or two over here. Can you see that okay on screen? Yes. Let me just do another daddy and baby pillar here. Like that. Okay, so just to get something going like that. And then, of course, this is almost dry. Almost, are you almost dry? Come on. I would normally leave this to dry, but I'm not going to do that right now because we got to move ahead. And I love to make these long leaves like this. So I used some green. I'm going to add, oops, that's the black. Let's use up, oh, I have this green right here. So I'll take this green and I just randomly draw a leaf in here over top. Like that. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to selectively paint around these designs. Let's put a smaller leaf here. Now the paint is starting to skip. I'm going to show you. See how the paint is skipping right there? That's because there's not enough moisture in the brush. So I just had to add a little bit of water to the brush and that will get it to flow better. There we go. There's another leaf. And then I'll bring that one down, bring this one down. So now I have a couple of leaves beginning. Oops. And now I have to bring that one up like that. And what I did with the leaves is I put multiple colors on them. So I'm going to do that again. Where's that crazy green that I have? Phthalo green right here, which is transparent and quite bright. But I'm going to add to that some of the pale yellow because the pale yellow is opaque. Come on, you can do it. And that way I'll get a different green. Ooh, actually, that's more of a teal. I don't like it. So what am I going to do? I'm going to throw in, we don't want it to be so tealy, all right? So what's another good color we can throw in with it? Let's try this one, which is primary yellow. So my days when I'm painting are just like this, messing around with different colors, seeing what they're going to do for me. Ooh, there's an interesting light green right there. Okay. So I'm going to take that interesting light green now on a small brush. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to change these leaves just a little bit because they were looking a little bit dark and olivey. Okay, there we go. I'm not being too careful as I cover these leaves because it just doesn't matter. I can always change the color later if I want to. And I like the look of layering the colors. There we go. So those are on there now. That's kind of like these two right here. And I can get just a little bit darker on there. Let's see. These are a little bit darker. I like to create some contrast in the leaves. So I want to have some lighter areas and some darker areas. So here I'm using it almost straight out of the tube. This emerald green, I'm actually adding just the slightest bit of that light green to it so the colors are similar to one another. There we go. And now I'm dropping a shadow in. Nice. So now these leaves have a shadow. And as you work with your various mixes like this, as long as you're mixing from the same sort of family here, you're going to get, they will play nicely together on your surface. So now I'm getting some dimension in these. Let's see if you can get a really good look through the light to see that you're starting to develop some dimension there. Now, what I would do with this piece is figure out a color that I want the background to be. So the opposite of blue, like this light blue, is orange. So let's mix up a bright orange. We actually have a fluorescent orange here. But I'm going to mix the fluorescent orange with a little bit of white because fluorescent orange is transparent. And I need a color in the background that's going to cover and not let everything show through. So let me mix those two colors together. That's the white and the fluorescent orange. Ooh, a little bit of blue got in there. Hey, what are you doing in there, blue? Okay, I need more orange because it is not quite enough. Can you see that okay? Here, make sure you can see it. I want to be sure it looks orange because some of that blue got in there. It's overpowering it just a little bit. Okay. Ooh, now I have a really soft, pretty orange here. Actually, do I have another orange? No. Nope. Okay. A little bit more. This is why it helps to have that serendipity paper next to you, because I find as I'm color mixing, often I have to add, and I'd rather make more paint and be sure that I don't run out than not have enough. You don't want to not have enough when you're color mixing because it's hard to get back to exactly the same color if you run out. Okay, good. That's a little brighter. So now I'm going to take that color and put it on a big old brush like this. Let's get the brush wet first. And then I'm going into my color. And what I'm doing is I'm filling the belly of the brush, but I'm also flattening the top part of it right here. So I want to make sure that the brush is flat so that I can come in like this and put that up to the edge of something that I might want to have the edge of, like that. So this is the negative edge painting, and I may want to leave part of this blue. So I'll come back up here, and maybe I want to leave part of the blue and purple there. And I want to do the background here with the orange. And then I'm going to go around this pillar like that. So you're actually going to end up covering up a bunch of the painting that you've already done. So don't sweat it. You can always go back and add more design work, right? So let's do that. And then I'm going to go around the pillar like this. So normally I would have had a lot more designs in the background. I would have filled more of the page here. But this is how I come back in and sort of using the effect of negative painting, paint in the background. So here I actually want to have this go down in between those two leaves like that. And maybe go around that green one, come into here Come into here. So that's how I put my background in. I may actually want to cover up some of the more of that green right there. So I'm actually designing that background right now as I'm doing it. That's the fun of it. So this way you can be a little more spontaneous, right? Okay. There with the green. Okay. Let's do this. And then that means that I need this to be a little bit smaller right here. It's fun to have part of it showing through the back. Now I may end up having to put 2 coats of this sort of salmon on top. And if I do, and I need the coat underneath to dry, or this first coat to dry, then what I can do is spray this with water. So I'm going to take my water like this, and I'm just going to, in a spray bottle, I'm going to spray the paint, and then I use a saran wrap, and I lay the saran wrap down over top of it, and then set it aside. Let this dry, come back to it. I will even take my brush and I will soak a paper towel. And then I use the paper towel to wrap my brush if I want to keep this color going. And I put it in a Ziploc bag and then zip it up. And that way I can eat lunch and come back and the paint will still be wet. And then I can come in, and the good thing is after you've had your lunch, you can be like, oh, you know what? I need to change that a little bit. It doesn't look exactly like I want it to, you know, and you're coming to it with fresh eyes, and I like that a lot. But this is how I'll put in designs and build a background using the negative space like this, and then draw more things on top of it. So those purple circles here were drawn on top of it after the fact. You see that? So I've just made some more layers. Haha, that is so much fun. All right.